In these days and times, it's so important for you to understand and for you to be on high alert to recognize that people are going to be manifesting like never before. And those are even people that you love, people that are close to you, family members, friends, whoever. It's whoever is being subjected to the enemy, whoever is leaving an open door for the enemy. Because God is doing a separation, there's not going to be no in between. You either riding for God or you riding for the enemy. And so, because God has done a separation, you're going to see people manifest like never before. The spiritual activity is at an all-time high now. So, there is going to be people either moved by God or there's going to be people moved by the spirit of the Antichrist. You're going to see the difference because it's going to be much more obvious now. This is why they're mentioning people shifting or their appearance. They call it demon syndrome or something like that, but it's really all spiritual. When you are not sold out for Christ, you will be sold out for the Antichrist. That's who will be living and dwelling within you. It's going to be a takeover. Just like the Bible talks about, it's no longer I, but Christ who lives inside of me. You can allow Christ to dwell within you, to take over you, and you're allowing him to move through you, because the Bible also says that it's in him that we live, move, and have our being. So someone else on the opposite end who has not allowed Christ to take over, they're going to allow the Antichrist to take over. It's no longer going to be them, it's going to be that spirit. So you got to be careful, because the Bible also talks about seducing spirits. And the seducing spirit, it comes in a subtle way. It's not going to look like it's trying to destroy you or harm you. That's the key about deception. It's not supposed to look like it, but you got to understand that the enemy comes as an angel of light. So he's coming and he's not playing fair. He's coming to kill, steal, and destroy. And it's going to be in the form of people who you are familiar with. It's going to be in the form of people that you love. It's going to be in the form of people that are supposed to be your friends and family. But the Bible says that your family is the ones who do the will of God. So we can't be lackadaisical just because they are related to us by blood or because they're supposed to be our friends. Christ was borderline ruthless if you were not about his Father's will. He said to the disciples, "Who is my brethren? Who is my mother?" And then he said, "Behold." Then he said, "Behold, look around you. This is my brethren. This is my mother." He was letting them know, look around you. This is my family. You are my family. He was riding with the disciples. He was with the disciples more than he was with his own family because they were choosing to follow Christ. He was borderline so ruthless that, and there was a man that wanted to follow him. The man was saying, "Wait a minute, I gotta bury my father." And his response was, "Let the dead bury the dead." His response to things was, he's about his Father's business. When his parents were trying to find him when he was 12 years old, they were concerned, worried, looking all over for him. And he said to his parents, "Don't you know I'm about my Father's business?" He didn't care about his natural father and his natural mother. He cared about his spiritual father. He knew what he was here to do. And he wants us to have the same attitude about God's will for our lives and about kingdom assignments, about our Father's business. His response to things was, shake the dust off your feet. Don't sit there and dwell on the fact that people don't want to listen to you or whatever. Shake the dust off your feet and keep it moving. He was very stern. He wasn't weak. But some of us, we're so weak to the things of the enemy. As soon as the enemy comes and try to seduce us into darkness, we're like, oh, okay. And we make excuses and we feel sorry for people and we don't know how to say no. But Christ always had a firm no. He turned tables. He wasn't weak. When we are weak, he is made strong. God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. He doesn't want us to be weak to the things of the enemy. Some of us, we have to practice saying no. And even if it's coming in a form of things that we love or people that we love, we have to be able to say no and get real strong and firm and ruthless when it comes to our faith. Anything that's trying to compromise our faith, we have to be able to straight up say no. I was having a conversation with someone and they told me that there was a person that kept wanting to come over their house and they wanted to have a drink together. And this person was very persistent. So soon as she was like, okay, she let this person in. And then she ended up in a hospital later with a health complication because she wasn't obedient to God when God told her stop drinking. And that same person that was so persistent to try to come over, they never reached out to see how she was doing during the time that she was in hospital or even after. I'm telling you this because the enemy will send people to come to you and you don't realize that it's the enemy behind it, the enemy using them, and it's coming in the form of family members, it's coming in the form of so-called loved ones. You have to be able to recognize, you have to be able to know the difference because it's about the spirit behind it. The majority of time, the person does not know that it's Satan using them. But see, let me give you an example. Peter was someone that Christ loved. And when Peter came expressing his concern because he didn't want Christ to die, he loved Christ. He was expressing his concern, but check out what Jesus' response was. Jesus' response was, "Get behind me, Satan." And he was saying that he's a hindrance because he was not responding according to God. He was responding according to flesh, according to how man would respond. And anything outside of responding in a way that God will want you to, then you're being used by Satan. It's either one way or the other. And that's how we got to be. We got to be able to call it out for what it is. It's either you're operating in the spirit of Christ or the spirit of the Antichrist. There's not going to be where you're confused and there's no distinction. God has already drawn a line in the sand. God has already separated his people. And we're going to start to see, just like we can allow Christ to dwell within us and take over us and allow him to move through us, that's the same way the enemy can do. Remember, he's the imitator. God is the creator and Satan is the imitator. You got to be able to recognize when the enemy is trying to seduce you into darkness. It may come in the form of somebody wanting to hang out. It may come in the form of when you're bored, somebody coming and saying, hey, why don't you smoke this with me? It's all to get you in darkness. And it's not going to come in a way that seems like it's trying to destroy you. It's going to come in the form of people that you so-called loved. It's people that you love or people that you're familiar with. You have to be able to get a stern no in your